Oh, the alignment's pretty good. Certainly as good as I would hope to do prior to putting it on the top of the camera. So this can go back on top of the camera body now. So I will get some lacquer and put a couple of spots on here and we'll be in business. Before the rangefinder goes on, I have one more thing I need to do, and that's get the adjustment wheel for the frame counter in place. So I'll gather these pieces together. Here's our wheel. Yeah. Our shield has to go on here. Our baffle goes on there. The screw goes through the lot. I can align the hole. That's better. Like that. Excuse me. The spring. Here's the spring. I'll get that on there. This is always awkward to get placed correctly. That's it. So this piece is sprung loaded. Our frame counter can go on last of all. Right, the rangefinder. That screw was tight, wasn't it? Yep, the rangefinder. Okay. So I want to put a couple of spots of lacquer on that so that the rangefinder doesn't move even if the camera is severely bumped, because there are no dowels locating the rangefinder on the camera body. It's held down by two screws and there's a little bit of movement there. If the camera gets a good thump, the rangefinder will shift on the body and then you've got problems. So swing the rangefinder into position, drop the screws in from the top. If you're lucky, I'll go into the hole straight away, like that. More commonly they sort of fall sideways and do not drop into the hole, and you've got to chase them, shake them out and start again. That went. I'm holding that rangefinder back firmly towards me and keeping it square to the body. Do those two screws up, make sure that arm's free to move. The rangefinder should move following the action of the focus there, and I just need to adjust that rangefinder, which I'll do by looking out the window and making my adjustments. Vertical alignment is done by moving the prism at this end. There's a screw at the front and a screw at the back. If the moving image is too high, then you slightly loosen the front screw, slightly tighten the rear screw. If the moving image is too low, you slightly loosen the rear screw, slightly tighten the front screw, and that'll get you by. Horizontal adjustment. This is your lock screw, this is your adjustment screw. The adjustment rod on the end here, that's for adjusting the close focus action of your rangefinder. And as soon as you disturb that, you have to then go back and change the infinity position here. And you have to work backwards and forwards in order to get it right. Generally speaking, you don't need to muck with that adjustment right on the end of the arm, just the main adjustment. Anyway, I'll get this adjusted and report back. Well, I have the rangefinder adjusted. That went exceptionally smoothly. That's not normal. Normally there's a fair bit of toing and froing to be done. I'm going to put the shutter on the front of the camera now, and I want to check and make sure that the lens focuses correctly, because of the roughness on the inside edge of this focus scale ring, I'm a little bit suspicious that perhaps things aren't quite as they should be. I'm just making sure I've got my shim rings in the correct place at the back, and that screw head is poking through correctly, and I can get this into the body. Have to couple this arm on the shutter with the arm here and do this all without disturbing anything. That's it, that's sitting in position. Of course, there's no automatic cocking of the shutter in the film advance, so there's no cocking rack timing to be concerned about. See if I can get this retaining ring sitting in place. It's a neat fit around that rear lens group. So it's that's it, it's started. Check that that shutter's firmly in place. It is. I'll just nip that focus up, that retaining ring up. Check that the focus is smooth. That shutter's rattling about still, there's something not right there. No, that's not good. I suspect that shim on the back of the shutter came loose and is sitting over the alignment pin. It doesn't quite feel like that. No, that looks good. Let's check that pin, is that right? That's okay. There's nothing loose here. Try again. That retainer ring dropped and back in the wrong way round. It did. Let me try this again. I'm just trying to see where the movement's coming from. There's still movement there. It's like it's not pulling down squarely on the focus mount. I'll have to investigate. I think I know what's doing it. This little screw here, the alignment screw, sticks up too far. I suspect it's not the original. It may even be that there was never one there originally. Some of these cameras are missing them. It sticks up too far, so effectively this is holding the shutter up. It's pivoting on that point effectively, not being pulled down tight against the back. The thread, this isn't even threaded all the way up. It doesn't look like an original part. I'll see if I can find one. If not, I'll put it back without that screw. A lot of the cameras didn't have one. Well, that screw was definitely the problem. No problem with this loose now. Nice neat fit, everything as it should be. So, and the shutter fires. I'm going to check the focus now and see how good that is. Hopefully that's good. If the focus is good, then I've only got to clean the top cover and put that back in place. The focus is perfect. No problem there at all. So that sort of begs the question, what was the focus like when that lens assembly was being held slightly forward because of that screw that had incorrectly been used there? It probably wasn't good. So I've got to clean my top cover now, put that in place, and I'm done. Let's put this to one side. Let's have a look at the top cover. Well, the glass doesn't look 100%, looks a bit smeary to me, so we'll have it out and clean it, I think. Yeah, that's very dirty, and no one's done a proper clean on that in some time. I'll clean the top housing with some naphtha on a cotton bud. I don't really know the history of this particular camera. It's come to me as a parts and repair camera, or it's one I've bought locally, probably knowing that it had problems. I'm not sure, but it wouldn't have been one that I paid a lot of money for. Right, well, I'll clean these two pieces of glass, I think. A little chip of something floating around there. There's a little chip of glass there. It's come off the edge of this one. Well, I don't think that'll be visible, so we won't worry about the loss of that. That means that the cam possibly has had a thump at some stage, and the way the window glass is held in place, it's often held in with just at a couple of points, which means that there's a lot of pressure on the glass at just one or two little points, and the nature of glass is that it doesn't like sharp pressure applied anywhere, and it'll fail given an excuse. It's not unknown, not so much with these cameras, but certainly with the 3Cs and 3 big C cameras and related models, with the large pieces of glass on the front and the finders. They have a disturbing habit of leaving here in one piece and arriving on the other side of the world with the glass cracked in two, and it'll be just because the design of the mount is such that they're under a load, an uneven load. They're not held down all around the perimeter, they're held down in one or two spots, A change in temperature, camera gets a thump. Who can say what causes it, but it doesn't take much. And what had previously been a nice clean window suddenly becomes two clean windows, which is not what you want. It's easier to clean the glass out of the top than it is in the top. This rear eyepiece here is quite grimy looking. Most of that's on the inside. It's very, very cloudy. That's probably where most of the grime from the viewfinder actually was on the inside of the eyepiece here. That's good now. See if I can get these other pieces of glass back in the top cover. There should be a beveled edge on one of these pieces of glass. There is. That goes to the top. If it's put in the wrong way round, again that loads up the glass and it's likely to fail. So with those pieces of glass sitting there like that, I've got to get the top cover on and over the top of that without disturbing anything. And get the two screws in place that hold that down firmly. Like most of these tasks, it's only awkward. It seems impossible to achieve when you first have a go at it, but with practice you realise that it's not impossible, it's just flaming awkward. And if you persevere, you'll get it. Now let me look at this glass. I'm judging by reflections from the window light here to make sure that that glass is in fact clean, and I haven't managed to put a fresh fingerprint on it anywhere. It looks good. So back to the camera body. Well, I'm going to take the rewind knob, the advanced knob off there, because we're going to be putting this together shortly. The frame counter. There's two of the pieces. Where did the other bit get to? We can all stop looking, it turned up. Put a bit of synthetic grease in there. Push that on there. The gear goes downwards, not up against the other wheel. Put a smear of synthetic grease in the centre and just a touch on the top, because that's where the spring sits. And then this can go over that shaft. And now, I'll zoom out a bit, got to get the top cover in place. So what I've got to achieve, see a slot in the back, I have to get that over the AR lever here. This other slot, we have to get this adjustment wheel through it, and we have to do all this without disturbing anything else. So if I cock the shutter, advance the film advance, I can depress the shutter release completely and get this over the back of the AR lever, wriggle everything into place like that. Check that the frame counter's free, it's not at the moment, let's get that engaged, that's better. that was it. That little sequence of wriggles, which are virtually impossible to describe, was all that was required to get this together. Get the 2 screws into the top cover. The advance knob can go on. Spin that down. Put my spanner on that shaft, if I can find it. I'm only working on a tiny area of bench. I don't know how stuff can run away, but it does. That's good. The shutter release button needs to be screwed back in place. That's better. That didn't want to pick up the thread for some magic reason of its own. Alright. The rubber band around that, grab it with my tool. Just tighten that up. That's not coming loose. At this end, what do we need? Oh, we need to put our film reminder dial in place there, and I haven't done anything about it. Well, I better clean these pieces very quickly. They shouldn't require much cleaning because, as I say, someone's had these off in recent times, judging by the unexpected white lithium based grease that had been used. Well, it's tenacious stuff too, doesn't really want to clean away. Okay, so a wipe of synthetic grease on that spring and use that to stick it to its mate. Put them in place there. A wipe of synthetic grease on the underside of the film reminder dial. Put that in place. Put the other piece in place, run that screw down. And I should be able to use the end of a rule to do that. Seating those springs can be a nuisance. Well, that's working. I'll just nip this up tight. That's good. That little collar goes on the top. Our rewind knob goes on. Tighten that up. And there we have it. Nice Retina 2. Type 014. I think I was silly enough to say that was a Type 011 early in the piece, but it's a Type 014, and you can tell because of course it's got the film reminder dial on the top cover, and the Type 011 does not. That also explains why it's got the flash sync on there, because that was present on the Type 014, at least the majority of them, and it was not on the Type 011. At least the majority of them. So there we have it. It's a very nice Retina 2 camera. I've had it apart, cleaned it, everything's working very nicely now. Found a little puzzle in the way, and that was that screw on the back of the shutter that was holding the shutter from seating correctly, and so the focus could never have been quite correct, and there would always have been that annoying wobble. Anyway, that's gone. Everything else is good. The diaphragm, of course, that's all good now because that aperture was not good before. That could not be moved. That was wide open and it was glued there with oil. The shutter's working well. It was working previously. It's working better now. This is a pretty one. It's even got most of the paint. I'm quite pleased about this one. And thanks for watching.